Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Alvin Kamara got a lot of people's attention on Saturday morning, just before the noon kickoffs. I guess this would have been during the 11 a.m. Central window. Alvin Kamara tweeted, "I request a trade, so that's a lie. I'm in an orange robe on the way to Knoxville. Hashtag who dat." Of course, he was on the way to Knoxville to watch Tennessee, the school for which he played, beat Alabama, the school for which he played first. Apparently, the report came from something called FF Formula Nick, who not only has deleted the tweet, he's also deleted his Twitter altogether. Because Kamara went and quote tweeted FF Formula Nick, the tweet about him saying Alvin Kamara has formally requested a trade. Kamara went and quote tweeted it and said incorrect, and then went on to go on and answer several more tweets, because Alvin Kamara is awesome and I love him very much, and I'm so glad that he's a New Orleans Saint and has spent his career here, and I hope he plays the rest of his career here, although I don't think that's what's best. He even replied, quote tweeted a Nick Underhill tweet where Nick tweeted, "If anything, Alvin Kamara would like to find a way to finish his career here, meaning in New Orleans." Kamara quote tweeted and said, "Correct." He even had a tweet about Michael Thomas and letting Michael Thomas break the news if he were going to leave or something like that. Anyway, I love Alvin Kamara. He's great energy, always smiling, except when the team isn't good, obviously. But he's been great for the city. He's been an awesome player, and I love him. He's one of my favorite Saints of all time. The fan in me is saying that. But I can have a great appreciation for him as well as someone who analyzes and covers the team. So, yeah, I look at it, though, and the trade deadline is 2 weeks from Tuesday. And I kind of keep thinking, like, all right, Kamara's debunked this. He hasn't requested a trade. But my thought is, should the Saints trade Alvin Kamara? I mean, the Saints are going nowhere. They're 2-5, and they're littered with injuries. You're going to get healthier, but what really are you going to be playing for when you get healthier? Like, the Saints this week are a 6.5-point underdog at the Chargers. Chargers play Monday Night Football, so the Chargers will be on a short week. The Saints will be on a long week, and you're still a touchdown underdog. It's the NFL. Anything can happen, and I understand you're going to get healthier. But if you go lose this game and you fall to 2-6, what really are you playing for? I guess I could look at it through the lens of the Saints to say, okay, Atlanta lost on Sunday, got blown out. If Tampa loses on Monday Night Football to Baltimore, now those two teams are just 2 games ahead of you. Now they do have, with 10 to play, now they do have the tiebreaker currently, but you play each of them again, Atlanta and Tampa. And you have Carolina coming up a week from Sunday. So if you're trying to look at the glass half full, you say, if Tampa loses tonight, even if you lose to the Chargers, you could say, all right, well, you're going to go to Carolina. If you win that game, you're 3-6. And if Tampa and Atlanta lose, you're just 2 games back, and you play them each, and you have 9 games to go, and maybe you could make hay, or 8 games to go after the Carolina game, excuse me. Like, there's a way to make up 2 games, especially when you play each of the 2 teams ahead of you still. You could. I don't think that's realistic. I would assume many of you don't as well. But the way the Saints have operated, they continue to double down in trying to win now and thinking they are still a contender, which I don't think many of us think they actually are. The other part of this, too, is Kamara's contract. If you were really going to look at trading Alvin Kamara, he's got a $29 million cap hit for next year. But remember, none of it's guaranteed. So in essence, he really doesn't have a contract for next year, which is why Kamara wanted a contract extension this offseason. This is effectively a prove-it year. He's got nothing guaranteed for next year. The Saints do carry a $10.1 million dead cap number for next year, but his cap number is 29. So if he was on the roster under this contract, he'd count $29 million against the cap, but his dead number would be 10. So of course, you'd let him walk, or you'd cut him or trade him or whatever, so as to save $19 million against the cap. Or you could sign him to an extension and modify this deal so that dead cap number is irrelevant. So if you're the Saints, do you extend him? Do you trade him? Whatever the case may be. As much as it pains me to say this, I think the Saints should trade Alvin Kamara. He is one of the few players on your roster that has trade value and has a contract that another team could assume because of your out after this season. Whoever you would trade him to would effectively pay him for half a year. And then after this season, they could make a decision if they wanted to re-sign him long-term, or Kamara could hit free agency and play, sign the best deal for him somewhere else. But you could trade him to a contender and get an asset. And the team they should trade him to is the Kansas City Chiefs. Hear me out. Kansas City it is undefeated. They're the only undefeated team left in the NFL. They just won at San Francisco. And they are doing it on the backs of a really good defense from Steve Spagnuolo and an opportunistic offense that is void largely of playmakers. Hollywood Brown's injured. Isaac Pacheco's injured. Rashee Rice is injured. Juju missed this last week with a hamstring injury. Like, all the playmakers that Kansas City had are gone. Travis Kelce is a shell of what he was. If nothing else, Alvin Kamara has proven through the first 7 weeks of this season, there's a lot of tread still left on those tires. And if you put him in an offense that needs playmakers, that would make sense. He immediately makes Kansas City better. I trade him to the Chiefs. And if Devontae Adams just got a 3 that was conditional that could become a 2, there's no reason to think you couldn't trade Alvin Kamara to Kansas City for an early day 3 pick. Could you get a 4? For Alvin Kamara? Maybe not. Maybe that's too rich. But Devontae Adams is a 31-year-old, aging receiver whose all-pro days are 2 years behind, and they just got a 3 for him. That can conditionally become a 2. Now, I don't think he's going to be an all-pro, so I don't think it's going to become a 2. It's going to be a 3. But could you get a 5 or maybe conditional 4, conditional 3? I mean, that's worth making the call because the Saints are an aging roster with a bunch of bad contracts. If you have an opportunity to gain more assets to allow you to get younger and more affordable, you do it. The only way you keep Alvin Kamara is if you think he's helping you win now, and you're not winning now. So if you have assets for which you could trade to get future assets, this is the time you do it. And I think the only way the Saints realistically look at that, however, is if they lose the next 2 weeks. If you lose to the Chargers, fall to 2-6, and then lose at Carolina to fall 2-7, it's really over. And then the trade deadline comes 2 days after that Carolina game. I think it hinges on that. I think the Saints are going to lose at the Chargers, and this will come down to what happens against Carolina. If they lose and fall to 2-7, I think the Saints will be sellers. And there aren't many players you could sell, but Kamara's one of them. And I think you should give him a chance to go win. Kansas City, I think, is the place to go. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.